So we're going to review the Metapolator user experience stuff today. So first of all, Simon's going to take us through the website that he and Nicholas have been working on, and some visual and design work for the interface. And then Peter's going to talk us through the latest interaction elements of design work we've been posting this week. So I guess we'll move over to you guys.
Okay, so you can see here on Nicholas' screen an update of the Metapolator website, and it's not on the air. I mean, it's in the Git repository, and you can access it with neue website.index.html.
Mm-hmm.
And we did an initial structure. And now maybe we can scroll through.
So the images are on the placeholders. We have to design
the.
I mean, the first one they're okay, but like here we have to design those. But the structure is quite okay. We decided together. We have to come up with some content text to explain more the project. Here we have a display of the fonts in different languages. Sadly, that is not working on my computer, so I couldn't import screenshots. So I just imported a screenshot of the actual looking session. Licensing, inquisition.
Yeah, so now everyone has to contribute his kind of content. I mean, at least in text might, I think. For example, Lasse needs to write a few words about how to treat red pill. As you might have seen, I think it's very important that kind of highlight red pill a bit more, because users are tweeting already strange results. I mean, can you see that? Share that. Right. So we need just a few words to explain what it is and what it's not, and so people won't get confused that they might think that this is the final Metapolator version.
Yeah, I think it's really important to call it something like a technology demo or something like that.
Yeah.
To really separate it from a real product release and say really that it's for the technically accomplished enthusiast or font, but also put in their font designer. It's not for amateurs in the font field. So that, yeah, you project right what it really is, and who, when they start messing with it, can actually get some results out of it. You saw in G+ the feedback of one guy who tried Ruben's install thing and got completely stuck on Windows because he needed a shell, and that was beyond his grasp of doing things. So you phrase it here in the right way, that it's not a project, it's a technology preview. You need some shell scales to get it running, but have fun if you can.
Yes, that's what this guy did. Yeah. So please contribute to the website with content.
Yeah. If you have any images or that you want to upload, we have some toolbox so we can commit with the visual
Yes.
design to the website.
And by the way, the font we're using now is Alice from Way.
Mm-hmm.
Which works quite nicely in small.
Yeah.
Well, and because we're planning to use Sean regular normal with Sean for the user interface, and I think it doesn't need to have the same font on everything we do. So it's nice to use different fonts we're working on different communication materials. Okay.
You can note the.
Okay.
Okay. So guys, are you all looking at my screen?
Yep.
No. Okay. So I created a new page on the wiki called Visual Design, where we're gonna explain and that's the visual research we've done so far with Simon. We start with the preview of the actual blue pill interface with some changes from Simon. Okay, voila. And the structure is like also first we have the concept, and for the beginning we have two concepts driven by the color and the size. Like the color can be a way to structurize the website, like the whole user interface is colored, and what is black is only the font specimen, so there's nothing black except the font specimen. Then we have this user interface elements section. So it starts first with the 10 elements from existing software. So here I made like as a reference a sketch file. It's on the GitHub world, so you can open it and change it if you need. I've made an inventory of some stuff I've found, like maybe for design spaces. This is an interesting app on the iPad using like network to create a link between music artists. I have here some specimen stuff from Universe or whatever. Here are the toolbox from different software. So let's start maybe with the more known one, which is RoboFont. RoboFont is using Mojo and some very simple box pattern. And I think we're gonna have some kind of distribution just like this with Simon. I've done some experiments so far. Those are just very, very quick sketches of boxes, sliders, stuff like that. And there's also some icons for the panel. Also, we need because in my sketch file I go from the biggest, here is the biggest size, to the more detailed elements, like it goes from the grid, the design space, the specimen, the toolbox, and then to the point elements. Like for instance, this picture from Note, yeah, thanks. Can be used as a reference to the skeleton transfer. So that's for the elements from the software. I made a small list of elements we have to design for Metapolator. So we have the buttons, text buttons, drop-downs, of course, the lists, impute, pages, alert, progress bar, toolbox, panel icons. There might be two user interface fonts. One is shown user interface, and one might be the one for the code, maybe italics also. Those are the elements for the specimen itself, like the vertical matrix, horizontal matrix, the difference between strokes, outline, and skeletons, points, outline, corner, curves, present and everything. Compass, which is this one, pen compass.
Sorry, may I say something?
Yeah.
Every 10 seconds that you're telling me this, you are showing that you're doing my work in parallel to me. There is work here about what elements we have. The elements we have is
No.
That's
also the things in the. A lot of things is like if you would have talked to me for 15 minutes, you know,
Yeah,
it's already there, and I can.
I know from the cookie, but we started this like only last week, and this is just on styling. What you did is more the architecture and everything. And we're gonna use, of course, your work and your research. But this is just as a reference. It's just a list of what we have to do so far. It's not real design. It's not nothing else than just.
Yeah, but just by structuring it in some ways.
Yeah.
You're redoing a lot of decisions I've already taken.
Yeah,
for instance, you will see in the next half a day that there is actually no difference between looking at there is no outline basically. There's just black on, that's the design goal, and I'm gonna do everything to achieve it that we don't have an outline mode, for instance. Because
not now, but eventually at one point we're gonna edit the outlines of the font.
No, not ever. You're going to edit the transition from black to white, but we're not going to be looking at outlines like you do in old software. And that's a very strong user interface decision to get rid of the old stuff and get on with the new way of doing things, which fits the Metapolator way. But I will show you that in the next day, basically. But also the list of what is. A lot of decisions are in there, which are like, it is double work. Also, there is just for buttons and other interactive items. Yeah, there's multiple forms in the UI depending on the context, what actually fits better, and that you can see by a survey of the wireframes. So what I'm trying to say is that with some of this work, yes, you can simply say, let's talk 15 minutes, I'm going to be looking at this and this, and I can give you already a tour of what there is there that actually has the information on a plate of what is actually needed in this sense, instead of, I mean, it didn't make much sense to really go touring through Ableton or through Photoshop and stuff like that, because for the whole interaction principles, I already did that tour and selected what is what can be made to fit together in this context here. I would rather that you start with what shape it has here and then give it a visual expression, I would say.
But isn't that mood board kind of work? It's not about the interaction design, it's about the color, the style.
Yeah, but I expected also mood board, and that is very needed. But instead we go through a whole structured approach that is in some ways, different, made in parallel, made with a general view outside the project instead of in the project. And this is, it will take a lot of effort to bend it straight again.
I'm not sure that I see it that way. I mean, I think that what we've seen is a kind of mood board about the kinds of what interfaces look like in these kinds of designer tools. The screenshot at the top of the page is using the element structure as you've described it, and made it a more visually polished treatment of it, right?
That's true, but then we went on to this research material, and especially how Nicholas said, I don't know, maybe from his point of view it was purely a visual exploration. But even there, in the interaction design, which is where it overlaps with the visual, I don't want to make, let's say, certain mistakes that have been made historically before in these kind of tools again and again and again, for instance, and I avoid them by simply not specifying them like that. This work shouldn't be thrown away by dragging in the mistakes from older tools again.
Yes, of course, but to making a visual reference, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, no, even if it's totally different context and different usage, you always you're allowed to make a visual reference to something.
Yeah, maybe it's the difference that I look at the examples and immediately I see the interaction, and maybe you guys see it purely as your visual means. This can be the case.
I think so. Yeah. Okay.
Then still is all the structure material, which is in part incorrect or incomplete, or based on things out there.
I don't know. I mean, the stuff later in the page is listing the things is a list of things to have specific visual design focuses, right? Like the way the lists look, the way the buttons look, or whatever. Each of those individual pieces has to be designed. So having a list of them is good.
Yeah, if that list is correct, which
it's on the wiki. So if it's not correct, then you can edit it.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry to be a bit grumpy about this, but at the end it looks like a lot of work that has been done. That
we haven't spent a lot of work on it.
Okay. So do you want to, guys, Nicholas and Simon? Do you want to continue?
Well, there's not much more to add. Yeah, I think as I hopefully a new tab. I think here with that one, I try to go into a direction where to grasp the tonality of the design of Metapolator, where all the interface stuff kind of fades into the grayscale or color code, and you really focus on the text you're working on. That means also that all the structure from the blue pill so far has gone. I mean, visually at least. Of course, still there, but not if you're working on the text or on your font. And so, how the color code works is that right now we look at the parameter page, and this is right now coded in this orange. And if we change the design space, the master section goes to the left, right? So, but basically it belongs to the parameter page. So that one still keeps the orange, but all the other stuff that's design space related will be treated with red because we're in the center section. And so on. If you go to the fonts, then all the stuff that has purely to do with the fonts is coded with the font color, and the other is a reference or link to the page, to the main page.
I have a little bit that the masters columns and the instances column are really connecting elements. So it's not that the masters are part of the parameters page. They are the bridge between the parameters and the design spaces. So they have an intermediate role.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah, they're in between yellow and red, the masters, and instances are in between red and blue.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think no. Yes, there's two things fighting, or two priorities fighting. One is that the masters and the instances column do not change their look when we do a transition from view to view. They need to be the same and not be colored differently.
Yes.
Which you achieve, and that's good. The other is that, no, it's the wrong signal to say that the masters are really just part of the parameters, although you can also see in the design spaces. They're really...
But there's a reason why they are on the page of the parameters.
Yeah, they're on both. They're in the middle. They're the bridge. The bridge is the best word for what you can say. You bring your work from the parameters to the design spaces through the masters column. You bring your work from design spaces to real fonts through the instances column, and that's what it means. And it's important that the visual design also expresses that, and not say that it's exclusive or more part of one page than another. I would say that is important. So I'm a little bit concerned about the signal of that parameters, of that masters really is more part of the parameters view. That would send the wrong signals. And another thing is, while we do still, the masters and adjustment masters don't collapse like that with triangles. The triangles are their action menus. They're behind the titles. Now, there's a lot of smaller interaction. It must look different stuff that I would like to say here, but I think I better do that with Nicolas and Simon in a session.
Yes.
Because now too much has become the same, which is counterproductive for interaction, actually. So, you know, must quickly see that weight is actually a master sequence, and it just stands there above it, but it's not really connected to those to those dots, is it? And why the difference between masters and weight should, you know, same font, same position. It's very little difference. So the structure of those things is now disappeared in white, and that's not a good thing. That's not gonna help working with this. So there's some so there's really some stuff to do, or things to further develop with this, and I guess we spend another session on this.
Okay, good.
Okay. I guess, Peter, do you want to take us through the UX work that you've been doing recently?
Now you guys can complain about what I did. I have to screen share something, don't I?
Yeah.
For which I have to press some button. Well, let's first get out of this mode. And Google. This thing is longer than my screen share.
Actually, while you're setting that up, I guess I'll comment on I have a few comments on what Nicolas was showing. So I think that one of the interesting ideas here is this kind of blurring of the lines between the type design and the typography that Metapolator, maybe next year, offers this potential for having a few kind of high-level parameters and allowing users to, really end users to access part of the Metapolator system. And so I think that, yeah, the user interface, having that kind of visually is really nice. I like the, some of the fundamental concepts in the Google material design. This idea of, using like magic paper and having the main specimens kind of galley as little piece. Each piece of specimen is on its own little piece of card, and the panels would be different pieces of card. In the kind of very plain color wireframe that was on the home page, then there was these, the panels were kind of using an offset background to bring more focus to the main specimen. The main specimen is black and white, and then that brings, the primary, that makes that primary in the visual hierarchy, and then the panels are kind of, lighter in color, or that's not right. Can't get light and white. I mean, they're kind of subdued and faded, and fade into the background a bit more. Yeah.
So, you guys seeing moving me my?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I made at the first couple of days of this week. It's a completely new page outside the design elements that that describes. It's not specified, so I'm completely aware that Jeroen wouldn't be able to program this just from this page. There's quite a few holes of how things are exactly, but I try to, as much as I could, give already details of how things are put together. And so what you look at here is what every new design space looks like. Result from the Zurich week was that a problem that I tried to solve for months, how to make sort of a two-dimensional bubbly space compatible with 5, 7, 9-dimensional slider input, and have that round-trip compatible. So you could do a setting with the sliders, you could see it in 2 dimensions, you could change this in 2 dimensions, and it would make sense again in the 9 dimensions that the space actually had. Well, that problem, I finally saw that you couldn't cheat the math, so they're completely separated. That's why users have to take a decision at the beginning whether they want to explore with bubbly things or want to have full control over everything, which is by means of sliders and graphs. Then it describes the top interface. It's very important. There is multiple design spaces that people will work with, so that per design space they can cut down on the complexity. They just need to put in the design space what they need to make these instances. So not all the masters and all the stuff, just what they need. You can click that together in the control space in a matter of seconds. Just throw them in, they self-configure, and then you can get your work done and work with the instances. So then we go to tabbed interface, general rules that are for both types of spaces about throwing things in, taking masters out, how instances are completely belong to a design space, and what happens if you delete that design space? The instances disappear. Exploration built up from basically from the first step, one master, universal design space, you get immediately one instance, that's the hockey puck there. So an instance gets created in a list immediately, then two masters, they start limiting each other because where a master is defined, it 100% defines the space. Two, you get some circles, the rules are there, why there are circles, and then if there's three, you got a nearest and a second nearest master to any other master, and you can start building these ellipses. And the rules are there how they're actually made. At the end, I picked round shapes, ellipses, and this is really a result of that long tract of exploration that we did in your feedback or the community feedback. I think everybody at the end had a lot more sympathy for round kind of things and bubbly than for triangular stuff, which would be super correct to do here, to build all this out of triangles between the masters. So that's why they are ellipses, and they're maximized by making them ellipses in the size they can have. How do you show? I mean, one instance is the current you're working on and changing. The other ones that are also in the space are the blue diamonds, which matches what is in the list. Note for visual design, they don't have to be blue. They don't have to be diamonds, but we need a system where masters and instances and adjustment masters are completely separable. And yes, I would like that adjustment masters are triangles because that's a delta and it is a good symbol. For the rest, it should be just that you cannot make the mistake what is what. On first sight, you know that's an instance. It belongs in the list next to it, to the space on the right. That's where it lives. I put in stuff because I don't want this space to be full of labels of things that when you click on these masters and instances, they flash in the list, so you can identify them back. The masters have their first letter, a unique letter, or like C2 for, it's the second one that's called C something, condensed and condensed bold or something like that, to be identified like that. It's a trade-off for keeping this very visual and not with a lot of text floating around here. And there is an identification mechanism. Sequences, they have a starting point. So I mean, you also need to show that arrow in the list. It's in the wiki already. And sequences get this, limited by one, this kind of sausage shape, and when it's limited by more masters, then it starts to be this, these 60s table Nierentischen, kidney table shapes. I think they are actually quite pleasing. Then a whole explanation how it's made, the rules of how it's calculated by the limits of it. So that's no longer a mystery how the shape comes about. Then adjustment masters, they're the triangles. Adjustment masters, and here's a big difference, they don't, since they're soft definitions of changes, they don't hard limit the field of the other masters. But they are limited themselves by the masters, as you can see in the drawing. And then adjustment master sequences also, they have this trait that they, on their side, start and stop really hard. They don't radiate like adjustment masters. So you can make, when you go through the field here, a really hard change, like a step in the design of your font. Change it over here to something else, and here again a hard shoulder, if you use the expression for roads, doing that. How I pick the colors as a reference. You can take this or not, but at least it has to be well defined, like it is. I mean, the system I have is a baseline in how well you can recognize, how well it mixes, and this is also a result of the exploration done months ago. You can have, as you can still see in some old drawings, like 20 of these on top of each other, and still you would see the edges of where one starts and where one overlaps with the other. And that's a good thing, and it's even pretty good color blindness resilient, which I tested, as I say there. Just about most cases, you can always see the difference between these areas, so colorblind font designers also can work with this.
I am.
So then the whole other side, control space. You put in one master, yeah, you get again a hockey puck for an instance. Next to it, the name of it's completely on the master. This is really state that it's a bit, yeah. The instance is the master. It's not so interesting. You drop a second one, you get a slider. It's designed to be very, very compact within this 280 width. This is really important because this panel is going to be in a normal situation 600 wide, about 350 high, and only when you get bigger screens this stuff will get bigger. So there's really a lot of effort went into making all of this compact and fit together in columns. So click on the number to set it, you slide between this and that, you set a mix. Third one, you got two of these mixers. This is the familiar interface to set the left-hand side to all the same things. And when you got three masters, that is two sliders, you can have the triangle. And the triangle is so immensely optimized for two-dimensional interaction that we just got to have it when we have three masters. This is such a, yeah, it is a piece of perfection how this works. It is perfect how it shows even the trade-offs between if you go towards bold, you get less narrow and italic, that kind of thing. It shows the 100% rule, and so we're just going to have it as an option for three masters in a group, this kind of a thing. Then how the instances are represented, again by triangles and by a whole string of them. So you will be able to see in all the controls how your instances are placed, and especially with the strings, again the head and the tail that matches what you see in the list is all shown there. And from now on they're all over the thing. Okay, in the triangle form you can see now the path the string takes through the space. And especially these 2D layouts are really informative what your string of instances is actually doing. Then the sequences, thin, light, regular, bold. On a sequence you can already create a whole family with this stuff, with only this. Then you have two, then you have crossing sequences, they got regular in common, that's shown here. This is the compact form when they are in parallel, and now yeah, and here is the XY graph form, which again shows better what the string of instances is doing, but it takes more space, and if you don't have the space, you better use the other one. Extending this, you can go on and on and on and on and on with adding access to digs. You can do here a 6-axis system by adding another 3, and I'm very confident that nobody would go mad like you would go with Metapolator when you're doing that. It's very, very controllable how you do things here. I need to after this week make another drawing that if you continue with the crosses, you get more crosses above each other or next to each other when you have like 4 axes and how they are connected. This is when you cross and you add another master sequence. It gets connected again, and the connection makes that everything is all okay. So, and here is extra. This is something I made last week, and I think it will make Dave really happy. If you have a crossing system like this one, weight and width, and the cross is regular, so there's a defined origin, then you can really take some masters and drop them on this control, and it will look like this. And the assumption is that you also get, so drop this italic and alt 2, that you get sliders that start with regular, and now you can add the traits of italic to this mix of weight and width. You get superpolation of these traits. And this is, in a way, a very undramatic way to put these masters together with an access system that is crossing. And this is, I think, a very powerful way to build up extra things or take into account extra masters in a design access mix. Now, I know this example show he might not make sense to Wei, but that's how it is.
No, that one actually makes sense to me.
Good, then it's working. No, just the choice of italic to work with weight and width, if that would make sense to you. But yeah, this is quite powerful stuff in a very in a very compact way to show this. This is already a 4-dimensional system, and you can do a lot of stuff with this. Then if users manage to make sequences that don't cross anywhere because they forgot to say that regular was somewhere in Vibe also, then here's a representation. It works. It always works. You can now throw anything you want at the design space, and it always works. It's regulated on this page how it works, and even how it works together. So here you mix between them. It's just mixing. It's not stacking or adding features on top of each other. It's just a wishy-washy mix between these things, and this is easily extended. On the side are again the indicators also for the value. All these values are click to edit, and then the indicators of the instances also for these diagonal or in effect vertical sliders between them. You can place adjustment masters as shown here on a bunch of either in the 2D space or exactly. So this is the point where the adjustment master gets its interpolation, which is its base appearance, and on top of that you apply the actual, to look at it, apply the changes. It is described how it then subdivides actually these axes and spaces, and how its influence is regulated. Then the sequences, also described how they sit there. So now we have a toolkit of all the elements that can go into the design space. Then extrapolation, completely for everything, extended to the sides, always in stippled. For the visual design, stippled is simply a means for me to show in a very clear way that no, it's not grayed out or something, which would be an alternative, but grayed out, does it really exist? It's the same tone, it's hard, but it's sort of going out there instead of interpolation in there. You're going out there in a more wilder, uncontrolled space. That's what it shows. There's no labeling because the labeling is inferred from the normal labeling, and we cannot do any build up any funny terms that would be funny but meaningless to font designers. Plus, it keeps the whole thing cleaner again. It's just going out there. I've written down the rules of how to go out there. Again, the triangle is super. How you now can go to narrow italic or bold narrow or bold italic. This is really a two-dimensional perfection, the triangle. It's really a pain that we cannot build more complex things out of them because immediately it becomes messy and overcomplicated compared to a couple of sliders. But for 3 masters, it is it. Then how sequences are extended. This is what what's his name, Pablo helped with. How, you know, when you extend weight here, you're really putting an extra segment that sort of does 2 times extra what regular to bold does.
Mm.
So you get here 2 times bold minus regular as the extreme on it. And you see that depending on how wide the segments are, you get more or less extension. It's simply to really show, like, yeah, you get here 1 unit extra of doing this stuff, depending on what happens on the outside of these things. The same for the crossing systems, and with that it's done. Then hard work was putting it all inside that space. So we have a column system, 280 column inside what is standard a 600 space, but can even be smaller. If people increase the width of their master and instance columns, the design space will get smaller. I don't recommend it, but we will have to deal with it, so you get single column layouts. If you get bigger, you can place more columns. Of course, if you get more vertical space, more will fit, but we have to deal with everything. It's auto layout. And yes, if we got too much stuff, the space will scroll. It's the only thing we can do. So then we still have the thing that we have different sections. We have these sliders or triangle for the masters. We have these crossing master sequences, and we have non-crossing master sequences. And all of these groups, as they call them, give an answer by themselves. They give you a metapolation mix. But if you get several of them on your design space, then they'll still need to be put together to give you the definitive mix of what the instance is. So we need 1, 2, 3 groups. We need to set the balance between them. And that's what these balancers do. This is just be able to handle everything that's thrown at the space. So this is balancing 2 groups. One that is a crossing axis system, as you can see, and one that is just 3 instances. And the answers are taken from both, and then you balance between them. And again, on this slide are the instances and adjustment master indicators must be shown, because this is now, again, a new dimension in this system. So this is where this mix runs from here to there for that string of instances. It is shown. Then I show that you can also do this between columns in this fashion with an arrow and a line of what you mix, and that's the final screen of the whole thing. It is a concrete example. A crossing axis system, crossing master sequences. The answer of that is mixed with what comes out of this triangular relationship between these. You can even see that, yes, a master that was present in the sequence can be taken as a single master again and thrown into this mix here. Nothing prevents that, and this is especially when a sequence turns up in one design space and in another design space. You just need to bolt from it. You can just throw it in. In this case, it is in the same design space, and then it all gets mixed together, and that's the final metapolation of this instance that we have. And that, which is 20 pages of description, is complete as it is at this moment design spaces, which now ties together with all the work left and right of the master and instances column. And from Thursday, I'm on specimens, trying to do a system that's both powerful, extendable, and does not contain 40 checkboxes for things, etc. So if a system that takes different specimen templates, if you wish, either generated or simply really hardwired HTML layout and that kind of stuff.
Sorry, Peter. Just I'm wondering. Maybe we should pause and discuss the design spaces stuff before moving on to discussing it.
That's fine. So. Who wants to start?
Okay, well, so I think that the controls mode is maybe the kind of the first one. If we're going to implement these one and then the other, then I think the controls mode would be the first one I'd pick.
Yeah, you need controls to get the work done, and it's a complete. You have complete. It's not called control for nothing. You got complete control over the results.
Yeah,
so,
and it has some exploration with the triangles.
Exactly. When you got 2D, you can shuffle that puck around, and this exploration, yes.
Yeah, and then the kind of cloud exploration is is important for the meeting the product vision. But it's going to be something to implement after the controls is implemented.
Don't forget that it's. I mean, I'm fully okay that we completely leave exploration out of it for like 1.0 or even 1.2, and really get the controls working as it is specified here, because people can then work. And they can work really well.
Why can I not explore with the triangle?
I said you can. I'm sorry.
I said you can explore with it.
Why can I not explore with the triangle?
You can explore with the triangle between three masters. And it works really well because it's this optimized 2D form for it. But as soon as the exploration space itself, the exploration design space, is really for doing things by feeling. I also must warn you, there's a hell of a lot of things it's a very restricted, flat 2D look of things, so a lot of things you cannot even achieve because there's a lot of limits built in because of its 2D dimensionality. But you can do, as shown here, throw some stuff together and just see what happens, and that's what it's for, and it's an important component to me. So exploration space later, fine with me. Maybe later somebody even wants to prototype another kind of space, then we get more choices of the kind of space you have. Fine with me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the important choice is control first, handling all the types of masters and adjustment masters we have. And then you can work. You can produce, and you can make big families with just one project file using this. As long as you get several design spaces in tabs to work with, so your complexity per design space can be cut down by users. That's important. So tab interface is really important.
Yeah. Okay. So that's kind of my other comment, and again, similar to the Simon's and Nicholas's thing. I think that the Google Material Design idea of having a set of cards in a scrollable area rather than tabs might be nicer.
I would have to look at it, but if it is about quickly switching from...
Because you already have this columns system, right? You have this columns system.
Where do you mean? I mean, this is in the middle of the design spaces with the masters to the left and the instances to the right. I mean, in a way, each design space is...
On this design spaces page, I think if you scroll down.
Yeah, this columns thing, yeah. That one.
Yeah.
All of these are still one single design space. Every element that goes in the columns together makes the mix. It is also that every element you throw on a design space becomes a part, so every master, adjustment master, and so forth, is then part of the equation of making the instance. It must be. Yes, you can set it to 0, but at the end, it's Jeroen, while setting up the calculation for Ruben, will take that into account and check the values for it. And also for users, it becomes more and more complex what they have on the space together. Now, I can look at that card interface, what you said, Dave, but if it simply makes it hard to switch from design space 1 to design space 2, or from design space 1 to design space 5, with 4 in between, or 3 in between, then that's a real waste of time of everybody's...
Okay, no, I think you convinced me that it's a bad idea. I think the tabs is fine.
Yeah, it's a bit old-fashioned, but... And usually I hate tabs, but in this case, it just works. So... it's just there. Any other thing? In this case, let me tell you a little bit about specimens. Specimens, an attempt. I really looked a lot at Pablo's testing page. You know the thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I really also tried to make a system where the specimen is an extendable system where people can make their own specimens and add it here or share them among each other. It's really based on a lot of content, and there are ones that are really like paragraph based and like these paragraph based and pangrams and stuff like this, and other ones will be generated like, you know, all the number stuff or all combinations of this and that that are really generated by, I guess, a piece of JavaScript or something that's inside the specimen. I really imagine a specimen to be just a HTML, some CSS definitions to nail down what needs to be nailed down, like when the specimen sets the actual font size, that can happen, and some JavaScript when things are generated, and then needs to be a little API. So here at the top you can set what kind of specimen you want to look at. Just click to change. You get a pop-up list if you do that. We get the size control for when the specimen doesn't specify the size. That's a special one. I really wanted to save some space there. You got the filter box, which you filter what you see, and next to it is a 3-level strictness control. How much filtering is done from, oh, any word is okay that has one of these letters, to only words that are made out of U, Y, W, and Z are actually shown, which then probably will just generate through all the combinations of those letters. Actually, strict is to guarantee to give you any letter combination. You type in here twice, AB and BA following each other, so you can check spacing and stuff like that. And then here at the top we need to say for the fonts, which is masses and or instances and all the stuff, if you get multiples of them selected, if they get mixed by paragraph, by word, by glyph, I show that in a minute, and also the same for scripts, if you want to mix them by paragraph, word, or even by the glyph. So here are the examples of mixing by the paragraph, by the word, and by glyph, which looks quite weird to me, I must say, but I'm sure it will make sense if you're comparing your bold to your thin, if everything.
Yeah, there was an image in in Nicholas's mood board of this kind of thing. I think it was like a lowercase g.
Okay. And there's a special control for the font size because you have to. I mean, font sizes range from something like 6, I gather, to 500, 800.
Sorry, I'm just looking at Nicholas's screen there.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry. There it is on the right there. Yeah.
Which one?
You see these G's.
Hmm.
That's the kind of by letter that you mean.
Yeah, what you would do here is you put you can make this by selecting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 masters, maybe the whole family. You put a G in the filter box. You set them to very strict, so you get only the G's, and at that point you get just the G's of all masters, 1 in a row, for instance. You don't need to make a special specimen for that. It's just most specimens will simply give you this result. If you now would have the G and the A together in the filter box, you could still specify whether you would like all the A's together and all the G's together, or GA, 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 GA by font. This is this gives you the flexibility to compare users to compare how they want to compare things without building a lot of different specimens. Actually, it's simply a very powerful filter set to generate these kind of things out of very normal specimens.
Wouldn't it also be good? Wouldn't it also be good to make like something of a kind of like a rich text editor where you can just go in and type stuff and then set it so that it's your bold instance or like your light one or condense or whatever, without having like to do any of this filtering and stuff. So you just type what you do and then you just set it like a rich text editor. But editing the CSS.
Well, let's look at that because of course I consider that. But this works when you want to do a few glyphs. It's actually the same amount of work as setting the same filter as what you want to see, and that's how it works. And just press strict. But when you want to see a hell of a lot more of things, when you want to see the whole alphabet, and there will be like predefined filter sets like all capitals for Latin or for Devanagari, all this and that comes from the language module, then of course typing is never going to beat saying, you show me all the capitals and sort them like this between 5 masters. I can do that in a few seconds. You cannot type that in a few seconds and set the fonts for each in this and that way.
Mm-hmm.
This is why the system is like that. Yes, it is specified. You cannot type in these specimens. You can type in the filter box to get what you want to concentrate on, and you get a load of specimens.
You can't type in the text. Why not? So that you're saying that shouldn't be editable?
It shouldn't be editable because all those actions of clicking and doing things I need in the parameter screen for editing your glyphs and selecting them. And it's not.
But wouldn't it just be making the text box like a content editable attribute so that you can type what letters you want to see?
Yeah, I don't think it will be actual HTML. It will be a canvas, right?
Oh, okay.
But I agree with why I think that type designers are have an extremely strong expectation that they can type into their specimen, and that you could use these controls to initiate the specimen text. But
look, what's the difference between typing in the box and typing in a specimen? You will see in a moment.
That's your expectation.
That there is, yeah, but I need to make a system. If I take away the clicks and have suddenly text editing, I cannot implement a grid selection system for the glyphs to do the actual work on the parameters.
I'm sorry. What do you mean by that? I don't understand.
I'll show you that in a moment. It's further down the page.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. If you haven't finished, then we'll discuss at the end.
So I thought about this. If we go back to what I'm showing, I will also go back to. So this is just a viewing, and it's this is just a viewing, and so this is the general specimen viewing for both the both in the middle panel, the design spaces, under the actual sliders or bubble stuff. You see what you're doing for the instance. And on the parameters page, this is the small one for the design spaces. This is a taller one that you will get in the parameters page view. And here I show the selection mechanism. The blue underlines are the selected glyphs, which are then the working context for doing your parameter editing on a glyph level in this case. And yeah, this is interaction where you click like icons on the actual glyph themselves to select them and deselect them. It completely works like icon selection in your file manager that you have on your computer, the Finder, etc. And this makes for a fast system for actually editing it. Now I said no clicking between the text. I even say that in a rule down here. If you're if you have such a big need for actually editing something here in between, and then I can just about, because it's the edges of the boxes, that if you click exactly between the Z and the A, I can give you a text cursor. That's what I can do for you. Now, I think we will never start with like an empty screen or something like that. You have to choose up an actual specimen, which can also be the glyph range, etc. But I can just about, because I got one chance, if the click is right between on the edge of the actual boxes of the glyphs, then I can give you a cursor there. Is that okay?
Why not giving a cursor when you click in the white? Somewhere.
In the bottom right.
Of course, but I think that would of course be a lot easier. But I'm sure when people want to put an L between the Z and the A, they just want to put an L between the Z and the A. Although you may be right. It's a strict rule, but yeah, only typing in real white space, never over or in between boxes.
Users have an extreme. I think we all have an extremely strong expectation. If we see text, we can edit it with a cursor. So we can click on a white space, and the cursor will be placed at the end of the string nearest to that click point. And if we click inside a string, the cursor will be placed at the nearest cursor position between the letters.
You think that will still be the case, that when you approach with the cursor any of these glyphs at a certain size, they turn into skeletons and handles and stuff like that?
Well, then we would have a toolbar button which says cursor, and then
no way, that is not going to happen. Sorry, that is exactly the kind of cramp that is.
But no, Peter, I really must insist on this because
why can't we have different tools for different clicking behaviors?
Because I don't need that. That's why.
But users demand, because of glyphs, to be able to treat the glyph editing canvas as a text box. That is an absolute requirement.
Now, I just told you I can do that. Then you were all silent. Then somebody says, just do it at the end. I say, okay, that's fine with me. Now you're telling me I don't want to do it? I just told you I will do it. Right, we will not have tool modes.
But
or we have implicit tool modes by putting the cursor at the right point. I will show you how. It will really be a hell of a lot faster than tool switching, which you then cannot do via shortcuts on your keyboard, because it's a web browser.
You can drive the app by keyboard. That's just a problem now. But I agree. I think that you're right, Peter. That if we can avoid having 2 modes and it can be done on hover, then that would be fine.
Thank you. So okay, I'll give you an insert. It will be limited typing, but I think there will be enough. And yeah, also know by clicking in the white space again, you get out of this editing mode, and then it's back to pointing at things and selecting. Yeah, it can be made to work.
I think maybe using a timed hover, right? If you just click on the text, then that does the view, which is down the page.
Yeah, you need something like a ½ a second delay, and it needs to be really between in the border zone of the 2 boxes, and the cursor changes.
Right.
The feedback that you can do it, and then it will work.
Yeah.
But isn't this the same as in Illustrator, where you have the arrow and the T?
But Peter's saying we don't want those different tool modes.
Well, the tool modes will be there, but they will not be driven by icons next to your canvas. They will be driven by what you do and where you click, which is then the mode goes away. The mode is always the right mode for what you wanted to do, because you put the mouse in the right position. That's a much better way of working with this stuff. So, but okay, we got a compromise that will work without any extra elements and toolbars and stuff like that. Let's be happy we don't have toolbars.
What's the compromise? What's the way that's going to work by editing text?
The way it's going to work is that when you see what I'm showing you right now, you see the selections and stuff. You click on the glyphs on their area, the bounding boxes, to highlight them just like icons on a grid. This is really going to help doing the work with sorting out different glyphs, etc., parameter-wise, and doing multiple selections. Like here, the A, the Fs, the Es in italic, I just do something to them, done. The compromise is that when you move the cursor and just hover ½ a second, a little timeout, long enough on this border zone between the R and the D, you're going to get this I-beam cursor, mouse cursor that Jeroen talked about, the text cursor. At that moment, you can click between the R and D and type there. With delete, you take away. With keys, you insert characters.
But there's no such thing as in-between space, because if you're either clicking on the R or the D, unless you mean the black space.
I mean that I have 2 boxes that bound the R and the D, and it's already specified that however it's done, they don't overlap.
Right, but you're saying you can click between them, which is not really possible because there's no space between them.
Hang on a second, guys. Let me. I think I'm just going to sketch this so you guys can see. So I think what Peter means is that you have a character box like this. You have a character box like this. So you have your A and your V. And so then when the mouse is, in like this region.
Yeah, very much.
Then
and
you
it's sort
go
of
here, and then you wait for, like 1 second, and then the mouse changes from the pointer to the caret. Right? And then you can click, and then you've got these 2 boxes like this, and then you've got an empty box in the middle, and then when you type, then it becomes whatever it is, and then you've got another. And then the caret is here, and you can keep.
Basically, you get a blinking cursor caret. You don't get the box immediately. Right. You start typing, and you can see by the hovering over that border space, And the change of cursor, which is a mode change already, it's like a announced mode change. You're also saying if you click now here, you're going to get the carry, and you're not going to be selecting one of the glyph boxes.
Yeah.
If you then shake it off by basically moving the cursor, then you're back in glyph selection mode or pre-mode, and everything is defined there. This will work.
Well, my concern was just that, in some characters, you're not going to have much of a border space. So I'm assuming you're talking about the space beyond the rightmost and leftmost actual point, and sometimes that's going to be a tiny space, and you're going to have to
You're even going to have overlaps. I know that. But even with overlapping glyph boxes, we're just going to do a rude but practical matter that this overlapping space, we're simply going to draw a line in the middle and say that side belongs to the right character and that side belongs to the left character, and that's it. And then we have a border zone. It's going to be crude, but it works.
So you have an AV like this.
And in the middle is a line that we just draw mathematically, the middle of the overlap. Yep, there. And that's the borderline. And
right. And so then you still have that same
okay.
hover radius, right?
And for glyph selection, people are not going to do it wishy-washy at the edge. They're just going to aim for the A and the V, bam. They want to have it over with fast, they do it. So I see no problem in making this work.
There'll be problems with zero-width characters.
How do you want to... How would they be selectable in specimen anyway? We got the character range also to select those to work upon. Don't worry. It's another thing I will be showing you in a couple hours later. The character range is just another specimen.
So Peter, I think these zero-width characters, for example, in the Devanagari, on your page here, then if you look at, say, the second glyph on the second line.
This one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you see there's this kind of loop on the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like an accent mark. And then in your Latin text, you haven't put any accents. But the Unicode string can have like an A and then the acute combining accent.
Let me highlight what I wrote about that. For diacritics and other compound glyphs, open-type features, the parts that make up the glyph have their own separate box, which may not always be a rectangle then. So you get sub-boxes for that kind of stuff to select them and work upon them.
Okay.
One sentence ahead of you with this thing. So yes, I know that there is like this compound stuff, and they actually come from two different character code glyphs, and you still need to be able to select them. And it's simply a matter of
the way that this is done though is so there's two things. So one is the kind of diacritics, but the other is substitution. So if you imagine like an FI ligature, then you don't know where the separate boxes are. I mean, if I switch back to this sketch.
Yeah, but that's one glyph, isn't it? Not FI. It's one glyph that you need to edit, or is it made out of the components?
Right. So you have an FI, but in the text, then you have two things. And then also, type designers, want to refer to things by glyph name. So typically they use a slashed system for that. So you might have like A, B, diamond. And then the diamond isn't encoded as Unicode, so you can only reference it by glyph name.
Now let me put it this way. A lot of this stuff like dealing with ligatures for the Latin module, dealing with all kinds of extended characters, I don't suspect, I demand that comes standard from some good specimens. Just like Pablo is doing it on his page, like here's a page to deal with all the funny this and that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going to be typing it in. That's again like, why type it in when we can deliver a standard sheet that goes through all this stuff with a little bit of intelligence, whether it's in the font or not.
Well, designers will want to type it in because they're going to have specific situations that make designing whatever they're doing. Like, we're not going to be able to provide every context for them. Like, that's just not possible.
True. Although, yeah, I can see what you mean. I mean, a specimen is a choice of what belongs together. Some of these things via the filter are going to be generated. If you say a strict filter for 5 characters, you're going to get every combination of them spelled out, basically. But I can see you want to type in the character codes. Now, first of all, I would say that at least my Mac has a way to put in every Unicode character that there is. It's called the character viewer.
Yeah.
But you say, Dave, that there is a general, this thing with the slash, that is Adobe codes?
It's FontLab and FontForge. I think RoboFont is this as well.
Yeah.
So would it mean that if you type in while you're editing some specimen /diamond, that we automatically substitute it with something else?
No,
when you type slash, nothing comes up and everything. So if you type in slash, the character, and then like afterward, any kind of text you type, it won't show up until it's a valid like character. For example, if you start typing slash and then SL, that's nothing, so it won't show up. I think that's how it works. At least that's how it is in FontLab.
Let me share my screen here.
I would recommend, and I'm simply going to do it, that while they type, they can at least see what they type. You type /diamond and make a spelling error. You want to see that it says /Dimona instead of /diamond.
Yeah, that's viewable, usually.
So you can say like a...
Doing an app installation. Dave?
Yeah. It's working.
What?
So you see the glyphs are appearing here.
Mm.
And then as you type them, you get this, and this shows you which is...
Am I looking to the...
yeah, so this shows you which is currently, selected.
I don't see it. I see...
So it's more like...
I see hexagons.
Right.
Not even aligned.
Let me open an actual font.
I don't get it.
Pretty sure there's a font full of hexagons out there.
Andare mono. Some of my favorite fonts. Yeah, Andare.
Ah, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So,
What's the sound?
where's the stuff with the slash now?
Okay, so then you type here /.
Can you zoom in a bit more?
I see nothing where the slash is turned.
It's at the top. It's at the top.
Yeah, but can on the syntax? Can see nothing.
Maybe you go full screen. Like you probably.
Yeah,
Already full screen, but
it's /question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see it.
Oh, there. Oh, well, oh, there.
Can you read it for the B, no? ABB. Ah, the C. ABB. No, but the C and the brackets, no?
So the bracket shows you which glyph is currently editable.
Ok, super. Nice.
Yeah.
So you can also add Unicode instead of the letter, no?
Yeah, you can enter the Unicodes as well. Yeah.
Now that we're on the topic, I have to deal with this really soon. Maybe you can tell me what's normal. You're working on a font and you want to add a new glyph, a glyph that does not exist yet.
Mm-hmm.
Some funny character. You say new glyph and then you give it what, the Unicode code to say which one it is?
Yeah.
You have to give it a glyph name first. The glyph name is the primary key, and then the Unicode is a attribute of the glyph.
And this glyph name, is that the same as this slash name?
Yes.
Okay, so I can put already a slash fixed and then users type in the name that it has, and that's what they used to. I don't want to reinvent the wheel there.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't know. I feel like adding new glyphs is kind of outside. I don't know. No, it's not true. Figure it out.
Fine with me to leave all the glyph adding and deleting out for this moment. It's less work for me this night.
Yeah, no. The reason I think that it might be good to be able to do that is because if you metapolate an alternative glyph, you might want to add that to the glyph set.
Mm-hmm. So tricky, but yeah, I'll just some basic glyph adding and deleting and duplicating. I thought that that should be in when you're looking at the specimen that's called glyph range, where you do your glyph management.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Nicholas's screen now, and he has the OS 10 character picker, and then you have this kind of similar font thing with a main stage, with the fonts, with the glyphs in boxes and a grid, and then on the left you have categories, and then you see the selected glyph with some metrics on the right, and then similar, variants and similar.
Yeah, no, that's the character selector. Yeah. Now all these things like punctuation, Latin, other languages, no, Latin not. Yes, we can have that as pre-made filters in the filter box, basically. So you want to see only the Latin capitals or only the Devanagari XYZs, whatever they are, then we can just immediately set that filter and you're just looking at them for every master, etc. that you're looking at.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna do.
Oh god, there's a whole list of extra stuff there.
Cool. Okay, well, I think we don't want to get stuck on this. So, Peter, is that the end of the? So
let me check. I think that's. Oh yeah, the last thing I show you is that you can select the whole scripts via these selectors here, and in that way, especially important because there will be certain parameters that are Devanagari only, and you will simply for all of Devanagari, but also do things like scale the height of all Devanagari to 90%. You select the Devanagari, you do it, you're done. So for the scripts that are actually configured for the masters that you have and are looking at here, you can do these sub-selections. So that's how we deal with script level editing of parameters. Simple, but it works, I think. And that's it. I will, after this meeting hours, add more and more stuff. To flesh this out, we're going to go into the glyphs and edit the skeletons and highlight the points and highlight the lines also, although Lasse said there are no line parameters, but that's a discussion we we have another time. Oh, I will have to make a mechanism anyway to highlight the lines when it's needed. So, and in that way, you got also inside the specimen your skeleton editor for doing things.
So, how does that work?
Well, you zoom in enough, like here. You approach one of these with the mouse, and you see the skeleton projected inside, and even its different segments, how they overlap.
The zoom control?
Hmm?
Where's the zoom control?
That's this thing. I didn't explain. Not only text, it's also something you can pull, either to increase or decrease by hundreds at a time, without taking up a huge space for a slider. And this way you can really zoom in from 14 point to 612 in one movement while you're looking at your specimen.
Right.
And
but if you want to change the skeleton, and you zoom in the entire text, the text will be too big, so the D will fall out the specimen.
Well, you zoom it in a way that you want.
So is there a way to see the specimen and then separately like a big D at the same time?
No.
Yeah, I think this is kind of what I was saying about the Google card thing, right? Able to see multiple specimens at the same time, so that you would have one specimen with maybe just a couple of glyphs that are rendered very large. At the same time, you want to see some paragraphs of text at different sizes.
Yeah, Peter, is there going to be any way to sort of easily zoom into any glyph and see it like as one glyph, maybe amongst the neighbors, and edit that? Because, like in FontLab, RoboFont, and glyphs, and so on, FontForge, you always want to look at it large as well as in the context of something else.
Well, I imagine that it works like this. It's there. Let's go back to mine and look. You highlight that glyph, say the italic A here. You take the control and really put it sideways or up, to the right or up, so you really zoom in, and the A stays on the screen, and you get an A that is just as big as the whole panel, basically.
So, but I think that's a bit too many actions to sort of get this button, drag it big, and then get in. I mean, there should be some way to sort of just open that up so it's large.
Fit into the window.
I mean, I don't know if it's a hotkey or a new window, like cloud or something, but
New window?
Something
I
people...
think you guys complained about this window switching. That's exactly not what we want. New window. We want to work within the specimen, so I set the focus just how it is.
Yeah, let's focus on what Wee's goal is, not what he was throwing out as possible.
Okay.
So what was the goal?
So basically, to get a look at a skeleton like really quickly and easily. So, I mean, typically you would just double click on a glyph or press like Command 0 to zoom to fit in a screen in glyphs.
Now, if you look what I'm showing you here, the grumpy wizards. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go with the mouse over it, you see the skeleton of the G, the skeleton of the R, the skeleton of the U, the skeleton of the M, the skeleton of the P, the skeleton of the Y. And now you see the black again. That's what
I'm saying like sometimes you will want to look at the glyph so that it fills your screen, so that basically you're only looking at like 1 and 2 halves of other glyphs.
So
Because what you said is like, yeah, okay, you select the glyph and then you go to the size selector and drag it up. And I just think the type designers will be doing that so often that that's not an economical way to get that view up.
So Peter, have you specified any corded clicks?
No, not yet.
So then we could just use the glyphs control click, right?
Well, actually, yeah.
That's
true, and also double click is available, which is even nicer, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that would solve the problem. Done.
Okay.
Thanks for the input. First, there's always a bit of denial, but now I see the point. So, and yes, we haven't gotten yet to any, and really what is generally available is Shift and Control or Command for together with clicks to do stuff. I don't know about really keyboard keys to using them. The command keys are not available, and simply pressing the letter E. We have to see if it's really that clear that you're not in text editing mode anywhere to actually do that. So, but let's build this up from the basics. But yeah, I think actually double click is to go up and down, to zoom in, to get the whole glyph, and to zoom back to where you were. Is pretty good doing that. So we can do that. So that's it for me right now. Feedback appreciated, even if the discussion is a bit heated sometimes. And I actually just want to get on with it. To bolt on a couple of sections here so that we got a good start for glyph editing and skeleton editing. And that kind of stuff. I think that's important. Because, Dave, there was one more point. Or did we already went through that, no? The visual for the visual for the UI, there was the third point, and it was done already.
Yeah, no, I think we covered both of those. Okay.
So shall we wrap up the session?
Yeah, Jeroen, do you have any comments?
No, not yet. Probably when I'm starting to work on it and I'm reading more of Peter's work, I'll probably have loads of questions, but at the moment it's too big to ask detailed questions.
Sure, that sounds good. All right, okay. Well, yeah, I guess we'll end the call here then. So thanks everyone for your time, and I think this is coming together nicely. There's a long way to go, but I think we've also come a long way, and yeah, I think that we should be able to get this into a very good tool.
Okay, then. Thank you, guys.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Everyone.